Let's talk about something that is so common, but honestly just completely baffling. Why does someone you're close to suddenly go completely cold? Just silent. It's a really confusing experience, and as it turns out, there's a whole complex, hidden world behind that silence that psychology can help us understand. I mean, have you ever been there? One minute you're connecting, you're sharing things, you're laughing, and then boom, nothing. Radio silence. The texts go unanswered, the calls aren't returned. It literally feels like a door just slammed shut in your face. So, in this explainer, we are going to unpack what is really going on here. And right off the bat, here's the biggest shift in thinking we need to make. While being on the receiving end of silence feels incredibly personal, like a direct rejection, more often than not, it's actually a really complex internal response. It often has way less to do with you and everything to do with their brain's internal alarm system for emotional safety. So let's dive into the first big reason. We tend to see their silence as a weapon, right? A sword they're using to hurt us. But what if we've got it all wrong? What if, most of the time, it's actually a shield, a form of deep self-protection? This right here really lays it out. On one side, you have what it feels like for us. It feels like rejection, it feels like they just don't care, and of course, we think, what did I do wrong? But on the other side is what's often happening inside them. That rejection you feel, it's often their fear. That indifference, it's actually overwhelm. And that feeling that you messed up, it's really their instinct for self-protection kicking in. So where does this come from? Well, for a lot of people, this is a learned behavior that goes way back. Maybe growing up, expressing pain or disagreeing just wasn't safe. Maybe it led to more arguments or getting shut down. So their brain learned a very powerful lesson. When things get emotional, silence is the safest bet. It's not that they don't have feelings. Oh, they often feel things incredibly deeply. But distance is the only tool they have to keep their inner world from going haywire. Okay, so that's one piece of the puzzle. But there's another really fascinating thing the mind can do. It can actually start preparing for an ending that isn't even happening. It's like it's reacting to a ghost signal of rejection. This whole thing is based on a concept called predictive processing. And it's actually pretty simple. Your brain is basically a fortune teller. It's constantly using every single past experience you've ever had to guess what's about to happen next. Now, if someone's past is littered with painful endings or betrayals, their brain becomes like a super sensitive threat detector, always scanning the horizon for the next time it's going to happen. And here's how that rejection loop plays out in real time. First, the brain is on high alert, just scanning for any sign of trouble. Then it picks up on something tiny, and I mean tiny, a slight change in your tone of voice, a text that takes a little longer to come back. That tiny signal triggers a huge emotional memory of a past betrayal, and that leads to the final step. They withdraw first. It's a preemptive move to stop the pain they're sure is coming. And it all comes down to this. It's a preemptive strike, and it's all about control. It's born from this deep fear of being abandoned. See, by going cold first, they take back control of the narrative. In their mind, it hurts a lot less to be the one who walked away than the one who got left behind. But predicting the future isn't the only reason for silence. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the past or future and everything to do with the present. Sometimes someone goes quiet because there is simply too much to say. Just let that sink in for a second, because it is such a huge paradox. We assume silence means emptiness, right? A void, a lack of feeling. But so often it is the exact opposite, that silence is packed full of emotions that are just too big, too intense, and too messy to even begin to put into words. Think of it like this. You know when you're so angry or so sad that your mind just feels scrambled? Like a library after an earthquake, books everywhere. It feels impossible to find the right words. And on top of that, there's this massive fear that if you try to talk, you'll just say the wrong thing and make everything 10 times worse. So in that moment, the only safe option feels like saying nothing at all. Okay, so we've looked at self-protection, at the brain predicting rejection, and at pure emotional overload. Now let's pull all of these threads together and really get to the core of the why. And this, right here, is probably the most important takeaway of all. This behavior, it is not a character flaw. It's not a sign that someone is just a cold, malicious person. It is, almost always, a learned survival mechanism. It's a strategy the brain came up with a long time ago to survive what felt like unbearable emotional experiences. You can usually trace the roots of this all the way back. It might have started in childhood, where learning to speak your mind felt dangerous or just pointless. Then that pattern gets reinforced in later relationships, where being vulnerable led to getting hurt. So now, in the present day, the second a similar emotional situation pops up, the brain doesn't even think. It just defaults to the old familiar path it knows is safe: withdrawal. And there are other layers here too. For some people, especially if they were the scapegoat child, they learned that their words had no power. So why even try? They've just lost hope that explaining themselves will ever change anything. For others, going cold is like hitting an emergency reset button. It's a way to step out of the emotional chaos and protect their own peace.
So, okay, now that we can see the pattern, what do we do with all this? How does knowing the why actually change anything for us?
Well, here's the most powerful thing. When you really start to understand that their withdrawal is a shield, not a sword, that it's all tangled up in their own history and their own fight for emotional safety, you can start to let go of the idea that it's all about you. This awareness can literally free you from that heavy burden of thinking you did something wrong. And this works both ways. Whether you're seeing this pattern in someone you love and this is a tough one, if you recognize it in yourself, the very first step is just awareness, just noticing the trigger and understanding that automatic response. That is where the power to choose a different path really begins. And that really leaves us with this one last thought. Understanding the why behind the silence is huge. It gives us context, it explains where the pattern came from. But the real question for anyone who uses silence as a shield is whether that explanation from your past has to be the story that defines your future.